we've set up a new thing at HIT. Well, we set it up a year ago, and it's this idea of a harm reduction cafe. And what it came out of was, with the new drug policies, we started seeing a disinvestment. And we've been seeing a disinvestment for years, let's be honest, in harm reduction services. We've got areas of the country that have no fixed site needle exchange. They only have pharmacy-based needle exchange. And you know what? The best will in the world and the best pharmacies in the world, they're still really, really busy. And as somebody said about the needs of the many, if you've got 30 old dears wanting to pick up their temazepam, you're not going to be as bothered about the guy who's desperately shouting for needles. You're not going to spend the time to give him as much advice as you are the old dears that are also buying hairnets and whatever. Oh, it's horribly so the idea we had was bringing it back to how harm reduction was back in the late 80s and early 90s. Harm reduction's a grassroots thing. It didn't come from large organisations deciding that they wanted to do this. It came from a few individuals getting together and thinking this was a good idea. The first needle exchange is set up in a toilet. Things like that. It was small grassroots stuff that led on to bigger actions. And what we wanted to do was, seeing this disinvestment, we wanted to give some kind of platform where we could sort of reinvigorate that a little bit. In people like you guys, because you've come to this thing, it's, let's be honest, as people are saying, this isn't really on the agenda at the moment as far as government and funding is concerned. I know Steve is saying that it's going to be more so with Public Health England, and I really do hope he's right, and I want to talk to you about that at some point. But we wanted to get back to that grassroots idea, because that's where, if we have to be quiet and not do stuff for a little while, it's the grassroots bit where we carry on sharing that information, that important stuff. So, I'm not a great one for reinventing the wheel. If somebody else has already done something really good, I'll steal that and just rebrand it slightly, and we'll do something useful with it. They've got this idea in... Do anybody know about the skeptics movement? Some people do, surely. This is the movement of people that do things like protest about the anti-vaccination movements. They protest about homeopathy, and they'll take homeopathic overdoses outside Boots because Boots sells homeopathic remedies as if they're real medicine. And the way that the skeptics movement tends to organise is using a system called skeptics in the pub, where they'll get together with other groups of skeptics around the country. Liverpool's a great one for this, London's a great one for this. And they'll have meetings, and they'll invite people like David Nutt, or they'll invite other scientists and speakers to come in occasionally, or they'll just get together and chat and get pissed and talk about how bollocks different forms of camel. Well, that's a really good idea, and there's a lot of connections between the skeptics movement and the harm reduction movement. I listen to a lot of skeptics stuff online, I listen to a lot of harm reduction stuff online, and the same arguments are put for and against each group. There's so much overlap, and it works. So we're basing it on that idea, skeptics in the pub. But I can tell you, there's an awful lot of drug services and people who work in drug services who get really, really nervous about the idea of pubs. There was a skeptics in the pub in Swansea about 2 weeks ago, or a week ago. And I got an email from someone saying, I think it's disgusting that you're running this as skeptic. This is somebody on their work email, quite high up in an organisation. It's disgusting you're doing this in a pub. Surely that stops some of the people you're aiming at coming along. No, it doesn't. For a start off, even if people are abstinent coming along, I've never met anybody who's abstinent yet who won't buy Coke or orange juice in a pub and still be with other people. It doesn't mean that they've got to isolate themselves and go into some weird commune off in the arse end of nowhere. So there's this idea that we can do this organising, and we can have it. And we called it skeptic. We called it the Harm Reduction Cafe, with an idea that it could be in cafes. But you know what? Most of the best ones have been in pubs. Still, because we really like pubs in harm reduction. As I was saying, that's where we are a lot of Back in the day, back in the 80s, when that first lot of grassroots stuff was happening, it was quite slow. You know, you had to know who was doing what, and you had to know their phone number or the project that they worked in so that you could contact them. Or you had to be lucky and go to a conference which was put on that was kind of connected, and then you got chatting there and stuff happened after conferences. You know, UCRA, the UK Harm Reduction Alliance, got formed at a conference because that was the only time that people got together. So organising was really slow, but we're really lucky now because that was pre-internet and we're post-internet now, and we've got an easy way of having a voice. How many of you have got some kind of harm reduction group on your Facebook pages that you like? You know, there's for instance, you could like the Injecting Advice harm reduction page, where there's this guy called Nigel who posts drug stuff up occasionally. But we've got ways of just any of you getting your voice out and connecting and easily finding other people with similar interests. So you can go onto Twitter and search on the hashtag harm reduction hashtag. And you can find loads of people talking about it. That's how I find most people to follow on Twitter. We've got ways of communicating, and it's international, not national. Now. So I work at HIP now. And I turned around to Pat O'Hare and Maddie and I said, I've got this idea for this website of making a way for people to organise, and I barely finished my sentence before they told me to go and do it. And this isn't anything that they intend to make money out of. In fact, when I suggested that we maybe get some sponsorship for the website, because it would be a good website to put sponsorship on, I was told by Maddie, we don't want sponsors for this, we just want to give this out and have it out there. It's not a money-making exercise for them. There's loads of stuff on the site. We're going to stick extra resources on there, but at the moment the resources that are on there are things like posters that you can download to promote your event. When you set up an event on the site, you get a little one of those weird QR code things that you all got on your tickets when you booked online for coming here. That means people can scan it and find more information. It takes them to that page automatically, and there's instructions on how to put those on posters. There's guides on how to organise, there's guides on how to get funding for a cafe. If you decide that you need funding for your cafe, you don't. You just get a group of like-minded people together. But we've recently had a set of cafes that were funded by this gentleman over here, Stephen Malloy. Put some money behind the bar of a few places and went around talking about naloxone.
And drinking.
And drinking, and drinking, yes, and drinking. And all of those on there are free to adapt. We don't care. If you want to adapt them and do something else with them similar, if you're from the recovery movement and you want to go and do something similar in the recovery movement, rather than these fixed cafes that get set up and people run them as a business, just organising things, just do it. Use the tools. First one was in Liverpool almost exactly a year ago, and you can see it was quite busy, and you probably recognise some of the faces in it. That was connected to the Hot Topics conference. We've had London, we've had Belfast, where we had 86 people registered to come to it. Now, the harm reduction community in Belfast is really tight-knit. Everybody knows everybody, but you would be amazed how many people were surprised that they didn't know about 2/3 of the people in the room. So if you think in your area you know everybody that's doing harm reduction work, I guarantee you don't. Because if they don't in Belfast, if you're working in anywhere else in the UK, you really don't know. And it's those people from those connected services, that what are called weak links in social terms, the people who work in the bloodborne services, bloodborne virus services and things like that. They're not on exactly the same page as you, but they share some of this contents lists in your books. We had one in Birmingham, which is connected with the drug consumption rooms. Drug consumption rooms and naloxone were the two big topics there, and I think there's a lot got decided at that one. We've also had them in Vilnius in Lithuania. There's one coming up in America soon. We've had them in Melbourne, Australia. We've had them in Swansea. We had one here last night with 20 or 30 people attending, and that went on till 2 o'clock in the morning. Some of you left early. Lightweights. Yeah, Jamie.
Never been called a lightweight in my life.
First time. We've had so far about 20 of them over the last year. So in the first year we've had 20 of these. Half of those have been in the last 2 months. So it's really speeding up, and it's a way of organising. What I would say is if you're going to run one of these events, come onto the website, and there's a little form that you fill in, and then what will happen is you'll fill it in really badly, and I'll either get in touch with you to fill in the gaps, or I'll fill in the gaps myself and just not tell you. But piggyback them to events. The busiest ones, apart from Belfast, have all been ones that are next to a conference. So last night's was next to this. First one was next to Hot Topics. We've had them next to other NNEF meetings, and they've been really busy. So piggyback events, if you've already got speakers coming in, it's a great way for people to meet the speakers beforehand. Choosing the right venue and time. Do not go, oh, our project's going to do this, and we'll do it in the project. Because the whole idea is it's meeting people on a level, and all on the same level. Users, workers, activists, all meeting together on an equal level. If you have this in a project, it belongs to the project, and your clients are still your clients. If you have this somewhere that's just known for being for clients, then the workers aren't going to feel comfortable, and they're not going to want to come. And you would be amazed at how much workers want to have them in buildings, and clients want to have them where the clients are. Have it somewhere neutral, which is why cafes and pubs are good. Think about if you need speakers. With the time, try and get it from late afternoon into early evening so that the people who want to do it as part of their paid job can justify coming. And then the people who give a damn afterwards can justify coming after work. Or the people who get threatened, as we've had one person at least, possibly two, threatened with having the sack if they attend a harm reduction event coming. Think if you need speakers, you probably don't, but they do get a few people through the door. Think about what promotion you're going to do. Social media is great, and we at HIT will help you promote. Don't wait for others to do it, just do it. And that's it. You see, you thought I was going to run over.